Gather round, kids. It's story time. A story about retro video games, older movies, and an old man. Wait, that didn't sound right. Well, I'm Mondane, and this is the old-ass retro gamer.
Oh shit, I'm all blown out. No! Turn down that brightness on the monitor. There we go. Hey everybody, Chris the Old Ass Retro Gamer here. Welcome to the second part of my Super Nintendo Video Game Collection 2022 live stream series. There are going to be 3 parts in this series talking about all of my SNES games. Did part 1 last week with the addition of my Super Famicom games that I have in my collection also. Tonight we're going to continue, talk about some more. Got some stacks here to talk about. And I'll bring it up again like I always do. These streams are not to brag. It is not to be like, look what I got. Hey, Monday, how's it going? Yeah, you gave me 3 of them, and I keep on picking random ones to use. That one makes me laugh, though. I'm doing these, number one, it's extra content for the channel, not making a lot of edited content lately except for the shorts. So, it's good for the channel, keep it alive. Number 2, it's good to have a visual log of everything in my collection just in case, an event happens of some sort. Number 3, it is good to be able to just sit around and talk to people, I live alone. It's good to have chats once in a while. Human contact of a sort. And number 4, it's really fun. I like talking about video games, so it's a win-win. So shall we just jump right into it? Don't have to do any preamble, talk about my history with the Super Nintendo. Got that out of the way last week. So let's just get right into it. First things first, what that whistle? All right, so starting off tonight with licensed games because it's me, and that's Hook. I have not played the Genesis or the Sega CD versions of this game. This is the only, or even the NES version for that matter. This is the only version I've ever played. So I rented this back in the day. Was not a big fan of the movie. I had strained my neck at some point in my youth. I can't remember exactly. I think I slept on it wrong or something, and I like twisted my neck the wrong way, and I had like a pinched nerve or something. So I couldn't move my head past a certain point, so I had to call out of work that day because it happened on a Saturday morning. And my mother ended up taking my brother to go and see Hook, and because I was home too, she decided to take me as well. And I wasn't a big fan of the movie. It might have something to do with, the neck thing, maybe, possibly. But didn't stop me from renting the game when it came out, and I actually really enjoyed it. If there's one thing I will say about this game that is like top notch, it is the music. The music in this game is fantastic. The game is fun too. It's a little easy. You can basically beat it in an afternoon if you really just put the effort in. But my issue, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I'm just saying the only issue I have with this game is that it runs a little slowly. Like your character, you're playing as Peter Pan, you're going after Captain Hook. You do like this training level at the beginning to get you used to the controls where you're like doing like a game of like tag or something like that with the Lost Boys. And then you go after Captain Hook proper, and the rest of the stages are about that kind of thing. You eventually can get fairy dusted by Tinkerbell and let you fly for a limited amount of time. Those scenes are pretty fun, but like just Peter moves very slowly in general, and it just I don't know if it was meant to like extend the game slightly by having him move slower, but it gets a little annoying towards the end when you're trying to like go after a boss who's like moving around real fast, and like Peter's just kind of like no, whatever, I'll get there when I get there kind of thing going on. But it's a very fun game. I highly recommend it. Like I said, the music is banger-ish. It is awesome. I like it a lot. And it's one that I've always wanted back. Like when I got back into collecting in 2013, it was one of the first games I went after to get back in because I had very fond memories of playing, and especially the music. It's a weird thing, but that's me. I love video game. I love classical music. I love film scores. I love video game music. All that stuff. Still haven't played this one. Still haven't put an insert in here too, from the sounds of it. And that is the Ignition Factor. It's a firefighter game that was recommended to me by Nintendo. I think he did a review of this on his channel, and then I got a copy of the Fireman, which I really enjoyed. And he was like, well, if you like that, get the Ignition Factor. You'll like that also. And it looks somewhat similar, where you are a fireman and you are putting out fires. But I picked this up at the Midwest Gaming Classic, I think in 2017. And I have not had a chance to actually put any time into it. I think I put it in my Retro Freak to test it out when I got it. It worked. I was fine with that, and I just have not popped it back in. And this also has one of those weird box protectors, because normally my box protectors open up on the side. This one opens up on the top. So that's the same box protector that was on here when I got it at the convention. That's weird. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Still, I need to pop that in. Maybe this weekend I'll try it out. And next up we have Illusion of Gaia, which is the second part in the trilogy of these games. It is the Soul Blazer trilogy. You got Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terra Nigma. And this one, for some reason, I don't know why, but this game, I always thought it came in like one of those gigantic boxes like Mario Paint or Earthbound. And I don't know why, because I did buy this back in the day when I was working at Kmart. It came in, and I was like, you know what? I've been really wanting to play an RPG, type of game. This looks pretty cool, because Final Fantasy II had run its course. And for some reason, like my memory is of it being in like this gigantic box that came with like a hint guide or something, like I said, Earthbound, but it didn't. It came in a standard ass box. But yeah, the game, and got that big ass Nintendo Power manual that's like a cheat guide, the Explorer's Handbook, and my copy even comes with the map, which I thought was pretty cool, and has like all the enemies on it and all that. So that's pretty cool. I do need to. I had actually made plans to sit down and play this back in 2020. Like when I was talking about 2020 being my year for playing RPGs, all these RPGs that I'm always buying, I was just going to dedicate the whole year to doing those. It just didn't happen. I had actually planned to sit down and play Soul Blazer, Illusion of Gaia, and Terra Nigma in a row, and it just did not happen at all. And I'm still sad about it because I played a little bit of Terra Nigma, and I really enjoyed it. I've played the hell out of this back in the day, never actually beat it, and I played a little bit of Soul Blazer over the years, and I really like them, just haven't gotten around to actually sitting down and playing through them. I really just need to do that. I keep on talking about it. I just need to say the hell with it. I'll beat Valfaris. Maybe I'll pop in an RPG and play through that. Next up, we have another game that was recommended by Nintendo, and that is Imperium. This is a shmup. It is a vertically scrolling shmup, and he did a review of it, and I was like, that looks really interesting. And when I went to the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018, I talked about this last week too, and during the NES streams, that there was that Atari Age table where that dude from the Atari Age forums passed away, and his friends from the forum got his collection, this dude's gigantic collection, and were selling it at the convention in order to pay for the dude who passed away's daughter to go to college. And like I said, I was happy to help them out, or help out the daughter to go to college by buying as many games as I was interested in that were of decent price. This was one of them. And I never played this before that. I've never actually seen this in person until I bought it at the convention. And the thing that's weird about it is the power-up, or the way you get power-ups in this game, isn't by collecting icons. It's by how good you do. The further you get without getting hit or anything like that, your power starts to build up, and then you start getting better and better weapons, just automatically. And it's a very difficult game, and it is incredibly hard for me to keep said power-ups when you're constantly dying, because the game is very difficult. But it's like a risk-reward type of thing, which I appreciate, but this game is hard as balls. So when I played it, I was just kind of like, I don't think I like it as much as Nintendo, but I'm not sad that I own it either. I'm keeping it, obviously, for reasons. Probably because I paid a good amount of money for it. Next up, we have one of my favorites from back in the day, and that is Indiana Jones's Greatest Adventures. This is all three of the OG Indiana Jones movies in video game form rolled up into one. You play through Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade. And it's a fantastic-ass game. Lots of Mode 7, lots of really cool effects. The music is ripped right out of the movies and is 16-bitized. It's been, what do they call it? Oh, Jesus, what's the term? I keep on wanting to say pixelized, but that's the graphics. Oh, Jesus. It's been downgraded to a 16-bit sound chip. But all the movies are represented extremely well. You can see the boulder scene at the top from Raiders, even the scene where we're in the Well of Souls. You got the minecart chase from Temple of Doom, even fighting on top of the tank from The Last Crusade. It is a ton of fun. Gets really difficult the further you go, but that's video games. But this, I do believe, is right on par with those Super Star Wars games from Lucasfilm that JVC released on the Super Nintendo. It is fantastic. Kind of makes me wish that they separated all the movies and released them as an individual game each, and just extended the game to make it a full game instead of just popping three of them on the cartridge. But I'm not sad, because what's there is very good. Maybe it was the right thing to do. There wasn't enough material to extend into a full game for each one, get a separate release, but I love it. It's fantastic. Next up is Judge Dredd, another licensed game. I had been wanting this one for a long time. I did have a copy of this on the Genesis back when I first got into collecting, but I got rid of it because I really wanted the Super Nintendo version, because let's be honest, the Super Nintendo always looks and sounds better. At least 99.9% of the time. And it is a side-scrolling platformer run-and-gun type game. There's a little bit of puzzle platforming also, based on the Stallone version of Judge Dredd. The crappy one with Rob Schneider in it. But it doesn't mean it's a bad game. The game is actually way better than the movie was completely. But it's really fun. It's a little long. The stages run on for a little too long, if you ask me. But it is really fun and way better than it has any right to be, based on a movie that I think is absolute dog shit. Mr. I am the dog. Next up, another licensed game. We got Jungle Book. I never played this back in the day. I had Lion King and I had Aladdin back then in the 90s. Never had Jungle Book. But this was my favorite Disney movie for a while, because I absolutely loved Baloo as a character. And that's why I latched on to Tailspin as much as I did back when that cartoon was a thing. But it is a platformer just like The Lion King, just you're playing as Mowgli, going through the jungle, trying to avoid all the baddies like Shere Khan and whatever the snake was named. I can never remember the snake's freaking name. Was it Shere Khan? That's a tiger. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever, not important. It's okay. It's colorful and all that, but it's not the greatest platformer. I prefer Aladdin and Lion King to it. Next, we got Jungle Strike, the sequel to Desert Strike, and it's even on the cover, the sequel to Desert Strike. Another isometric helicopter game where this time you are flying over like the Amazon jungles or something like that. I can't remember. I haven't played this one too much. I played the Desert Strike and I played the other one in the series a lot. Not this one. But yeah, it seems like just more of the same. Just a couple more vehicles you get to play as, I'm assuming. Control new combat vehicles. You get the helicopter, a motorcycle, a jet, and a hovercraft. Ooh. Boobs. You talking about my boobs? What's up, VGM? But yeah, if you liked Desert Strike, you're going to like that. It's just more of the same. Next up, wow. More licensed games. We have Jurassic Park by Ocean. I am not a big fan of Ocean's games. I do not like the way they are programmed. Most of them, especially if it's a side-scroller on the NES, the Genesis, Super Nintendo, the characters for some reason control like they are all walking on ice, and I cannot stand it. They are impossible to control. Sometimes they get it right. This isn't one of them. This one isn't a side-scrolling platformer or anything like that. This one is a top-down Legend of Zelda style view, like three-quarter view, adventure game where you're playing as Alan Grant. You're trying to collect all these dinosaur eggs. And the only real cool thing about this is there are first-person sections that use Mode 7 where usually when you go into a building and you're looking for a way out, it turns into like Doom. It's okay. It's a little choppy. I think the frame rate is like 10 frames a second. But it's just like the game itself is just very slow and kind of boring and not very eventful. It's just kind of whatevs. Felt like a cash-in. Even feels at times like it was a game that was completely unrelated to Jurassic Park, and they just kind of slapped dinosaurs into it, and that was, all it took. The music, on the other hand, the one thing I will say about Ocean that is fantastic, the music in their games is usually pretty fantastic, and the music in here, while nothing like Jurassic Park, none of the Jurassic Park score from John Williams is in here. It's like weird techno sounds and songs and stuff like that. It's the strangest thing. But, yeah, it's all right. I had to have it because I love Jurassic Park. Mighty Max game. Yeah, the Mighty Max game that's one where the character just jumps 500 feet into the air. I hate it. Hate it. Hate it so much. I had that for the Genesis, got it a lot, and sold it the next day. I played it for like 2 minutes, and I was like, nope. Screw Mighty Max. That game is god-awful. But because that game made Ocean a ton of money, of course, they're going to release a sequel. It's Jurassic Park Part 2, The Chaos Continues. This is not based on a specific movie. This came out before The Lost World. So it's basically just a sequel to the game. This is the one that I like from Ocean in this franchise. This one is a side-scrolling run and gun where you're playing as someone who works for InGen, I think it is. Oh, you're playing as Grant again. I can never remember if you're playing as Grant or not. But yeah, you play as Grant, and you're basically trying to stop people from stealing the dinosaurs and taking them off the island to use as like weaponry or whatever. And it is a very dark game. There's a couple of design choices which I think are kind of stupid. Kind of the same thing that I had a problem with in Platoon on the NES is like there are some stages. Everything is side-scrolling, left to right. But there's some stages where you need to like take a path that is in the background, like there's like a space between like bushes or something like that, which you need to press up when you get there to go to another part of the level. Sometimes those sections there's usually an arrow that points that says, hey, there's an area you need to go into here. The arrow that tells you to do that is usually hidden by something in the foreground. It is just stupid that they decided to put like all this foreground shrubbery in there to cover it up when it's important information you need to progress. It's stupid design decision, whatever. The game is pretty cool. It's hard. once you get the hang of the way the jumping and the shooting works and all that, and the way the weapons work, it's actually pretty fun. The thing about this is the music in this game is absolutely amazing. Like sometimes it doesn't even sound like it's from a game. It sounds like it's from a movie. It's that good and well composed. I actually talked about this in my license game, 31 Days of License Game series that I did back in January. This was the game I talked about when it came to the best music in a licensed game. The music in this game is fantastic, and it's not like stuff that you would normally hear for a video game stage. It's like it sounds like film score. It's really cool the way it's done. I love it. That's the one to get. Mighty Max had great music. I beat it sadly, but it's not a good game. Yeah, the game is terrible. But like I said, if there's one thing Ocean does well, it's the music in their games. Like I cannot think of a game from them where the music did not sound at least pretty cool. Another licensed game we have Justice League. I can't talk. Justice League Task Force. Is that a tongue twister? Not really. For me, apparently it is. This is a one-on-one fighting game where you're playing as a bunch of DC characters and heroes and villains. You play as obviously Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash. Who else is in here? God, the label that's on here is covered. Cheetah, Darkseid. I cannot see who that is. Crap. Despero, that's who that is. Green Lantern, Aquaman. Oh, no, not Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and Aquaman also. It's okay. I love fighting games, and I wanted to have this because I'm also a DC fan, so I had to pick this up. I got it at Freak Toys last year when I went up there to visit Rocket Sauce for my birthday, and they had a copy of this dirt cheap. I want to say this was like $20, and a complete in-box Super Nintendo game in this day and age during the COVID times for $20. I am not passing that up. So I said, give it to me. I don't care if it's a piece of crap. I want it. Just give it to me. I don't care. Just give it to me. Rocking the song and menu theme, hot damn. Flash was your guy, yeah. I never played the Genesis version. The Super Nintendo one actually controls pretty decently. It's just for a fighting game, like on the Super Nintendo, it's just a little slow. That's my issue with it. Just for some reason they could not do fast games until like Street Fighter, like Mortal Kombat 2 and like Street Fighter 2 Turbo kind of thing. But yeah, it just moves a little too slowly. But I don't think it's awful, and it's not great. It's not good either. But a good fighting game on the Super Nintendo. Holy crap. Killer Instinct. Yes. So at the point in time that this game came out, I already had a PlayStation. And I was kind of like, Super Nintendo, ugh, cartridges are so D-Class A. Get them out of here. I want those disc games. PlayStation's where it's at, boys. So I had no interest in this, even though I absolutely loved the arcade game. I played the shit out of Killer Instinct in the arcade. There was also talk that the Nintendo 64, at the time it was being called the Ultra 64, was going to get like this arcade perfect port of this. So I was like, no, I'm good. I won't buy the Super Nintendo one. I'll wait until that Ultra 64 comes out and that game, the port comes out for that. That'll be what I do. Didn't happen. So a friend of mine actually bought this. And I went over to his house one night and we were playing this and I was like, I don't care. I don't care. I need this in my life. It is so good. Plus, I was working at that video store when this came out. So the soundtrack that it came with, I ended up taking the one that we got in we got this in store for rental, and it came with the soundtrack. I got to keep the soundtrack. My boss was like, what are we going to do? Put that out for rent too? He gave it to me because he knew how much I liked video game music. And then I got another copy of it when I got my own copy of the game. But it's an absolutely fantastic port. Little scaled back, graphically. The characters are a hell of a lot smaller, obviously. There's less frames of animation. It's not as smooth. The zooming in and out isn't happening as often at all, if I remember correctly. Even the music sounds a little But, I mean, they basically pushed the Super Nintendo to the limit with the graphical capabilities and all that other kind of stuff. It is a great port. What's up, Lore Rider? Hey, thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. What's up, Game Room? How's it going? Thank you very much. That's awesome. $2. Thank you very much. Awesome game. Absolutely love it. I still play it to this day, even though I do have the Arcade Perfect port that came with my Killer Instinct Complete Edition on the Xbox One. Has the arcade version of the first and second game on it, to be honest. That's, so good. If I had the money to buy an actual arcade cabinet, like a real one, I would buy an MK2 and a Killer Instinct. Next up, we have a Repro. I got this off of that. Still can't remember the damn name of the company that I got. It was an Etsy shop, Retro Arcade or something like that. And this is King of Demons. But in Japan, this game is called... Let me look it up real quick. No, I don't want to take a picture, camera. Give me 1 second. Super Famicom. Oh, is it under Super Nintendo? It's like it starts with a J. Oh, does it not? Oh, I must have changed it. Oh, crapola. Yeah, King of Demons. It's called like Jukio or something like that. Okay, so what this is a side-scrolling... It's weird. It's like a side-scrolling run and gun, and then it kind of turns into a side-scrolling beat-em-up platformer. It starts off like Castlevania. You're playing as this guy who is like being attacked by demons, and he has a gun. And you are you fight like a boss at first, like this flying boss, and then you like go into this tunnel, and there's this giant worm coming after you that you have to kill. And then you do some platforming levels as the character with the gun. Then you beat another boss who has their breasts out. Probably one of the reasons why this game never came out in the U.S. is a little bit of nudity and there's a lot of blood in it. And once you beat that boss, then all of a sudden you're given the choice of like 3 colors to pick from, and each one will turn you into a different monster. And then you have to play as that monster for the rest of the game. And each monster has like their own abilities, you know, like their own weaknesses and strengths and stuff like that. What's up, Chum Nasty? How's it going? It's really cool. I got this as my backlog roulette game for the Super Neighbor Brothers podcast. And I was trying to play through it, and man, does it get tough, especially if you pick the wrong monster, which is exactly what I did. I picked the green monster, and for the level that you go to after you beat that first boss that gives you the choice, I was getting my ass handed to me. I was like, I couldn't get anywhere in this game. And I was like, you know what? But you can see some of the rad shit going on. You see that big worm boss right here that's chasing after you. It looks like it's right out of Dune. But it's a cool game. It's a cool concept. It's just really freaking hard. But I highly recommend picking up a copy if you can. Like I said, Repros. Way to go. You turn these this way. There you go. Next up, one of my favorites, another licensed game. I talked about this in my 31 Days of Licensed Games also, and that is The Lawnmower Man. I absolutely love this game. That artwork is great. Yeah, it's called something else in Japan. It's like Jukio or something like that. It's got a weird one-name title. But it is really, really cool. Like I said, you can kind of see the first boss with the breasts hanging out right there. But anyway, Lawnmower Man. I saw the movie in the theater, absolutely loved it. I hadn't seen anything like it at the time. CGI was still kind of a new thing when this came out, like in 92 or whatever it was. It blew my mind a little bit. So when the video game came out, I was like, yes, need it. I was working at Kmart. This randomly showed up. I don't even think I knew that there was a Lawnmower Man game coming out at all. I had been like so removed from like video game magazines and stuff at this point. Like new news about games was just like, whoops. So I remember I was working one day. We got our shipment in. I had to put everything out on the shelf, and I open this one box, and there's like Lawnmower Man games in there. I'm like, what? When did this happen? I need it. Based on the movie alone. So I set a copy aside for me, picked it up that day, brought it home, and it blew my mind too. It's a bunch of different games in one. It's like part side-scrolling shoot 'em up. It's like a lot of 3D stages that use the mode 7 like you would not believe. You're usually doing like a lot of the VR. When it's on a VR scene, it's in mode 7 where there's like you're flying through these stages doing like obstacle courses. Then you're on that cyber sled thing, and it's another kind of obstacle course with some enemies that you have to shoot at. Then there's like the targeting, like the combat simulation that the chimpanzee was doing in the movie, where you have like the gun for an arm and those little red bad guys would pop up, and you have to shoot at them. And then all of a sudden, you beat Job, and you would think, okay, game over. Nope. The first half of the game is the movie. The second half of the game is like a sequel that we never got. And it is nuts. There's like driving levels and stuff like that. You get to fly a helicopter in it. It is absolutely nutso. And I absolutely love it. The music in this game is absolutely fantastic. It's like this weird like techno with like classical music kind of stuff mixed into it. It is nuts. I absolutely love it. If you're going to get a licensed game for your console, get the Super Nintendo version of this. Don't get the Genesis one because they can't do Mode 7 and it doesn't work very well. Although it is the easier version of the two. I have beaten that one. This one is extremely hard toward the end. But I absolutely love it. It is one of my favorite games on the Super Nintendo. What's up, Denver Gamer? How's it going? Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Haven't seen you probably since the Retro Rivals like reunion thing that they did. Next up, I have The Legend of the Mystical Ninja. Picked this one up day one, working at Kmart when I was a kid. Anything by Konami back in that day and age, it was like an insta-buy for me. I didn't care what it was. I had to have it because Konami could do no wrong. And this was a weird one. It's a part of a series that we didn't really get over here at all. I think we got two games on the Nintendo 64, or maybe one of them. I think maybe there were two on the Nintendo 64, and we only got one. Or am I wrong? I can't remember. I didn't play the Nintendo 64 games. But this one is another one of those weird, overly Japanese games. You play as this, what's his name, Goemon, whose weapon is a pipe, I think. And it's a two-player game, actually. You can have two players. The other character plays this older dude who has like a weird handlebar mustache thing that like is actually holding his hat on his head. But like there's these free roaming areas, and then you turn into like side-scrolling platforming areas. And I remember one stage where like the level will actually like turn sideways using the Mode 7 rotation kind of stuff. I never got very far in it, but I loved playing it. No matter how much it kicked my ass back in the day, I would always go back and play because number one, the music is very catchy. It's not like awesome or anything, but it's just like it gets under your skin, like it's a brain worm like none other. And the dialogue is extremely funny. So I would always go back to it, even though I never actually beat it, but I loved it. I need to actually just sit down and play through it at some point. It's the kegger out in the woods. So last stream I was talking about that T-Scran Vigat, which I remembered what the name stood for. It was Trade, Sell, Collect, Retro Video Games and Toys. There was that Facebook group where they did the raffles for the expensive games and stuff like that, and one of the games I won while it was still active was Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. At the point when I won this, I would not have been able to afford it. I still wasn't making all that much money at my job. So this was kind of out of reach because this was going for quite a pretty penny back in like 2014. And I won this, and I do believe I paid like $10 for it or something like that. I bought like 5 tickets for $2 a pop, and I won it. And it's complete. It's a little beat up, though. I did not see that in the pictures when I got it, that there was like a little corner torn off on the side here. But it does come with everything, which I was very pleased about, because all the versions of this that I was looking at on eBay always were missing something. So this has, the manual, the map, and that little top secret guide thing, which is great. And this is another game that I played a lot back in the day. I bought it day one because Legend of Zelda, and I never beat it. I never actually sat down and said, you know what? Legend of Zelda's going down today. I liked it when I was playing it. I just never like put the time in for some reason. I would always, back in the day, I had like ADD for video games. Like I'd buy a new game. I'd be like, yes, let's do it. And I would play it for like 2 days and then new game over here. What was that other thing I was playing? I forgot. And it just, oops, I almost unplugged my microphone. And I would just forget and never go back. But I need to sit down and play through it. But it's just like the original Zelda. It doesn't do what Zelda 2 did, where it turned into like a side-scrolling style game. Not that I was complaining that it did. But this is another top-down Zelda game. But you get to travel through time. Two mystical ninjas. We secretly love the N64. What's up, Davey? How's it going? Yeah, I told you, Guilty Gear Judgment, man. It's got that side-scrolling beat-em-up stage in it, or that section in it, which is awesome. Like, I never knew I needed that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Next up, another licensed game. It's not a very good one. Obviously, it's by Ocean, but it's Lethal Weapon. So we had this at the video store that I worked at in the mid-'90s. And it was one of the ones that I used to, like, I was trying to sell my boss on, like, this combo rental thing back then. I was like, look, we always end up buying the licensed games no matter what it is. And we always have the movies in stock, too. Why don't we do, like, a combo thing where it's like you rent the movie and you rent the game at the same time for, like, a combo package, like, thing for, like, a weekend. And I was using this as the excuse because Lethal Weapon 3 was on video at the time. And I was like, why don't we rent Lethal Weapon 3 and the Lethal Weapon game and, like, do, like, a combo pack thing? And he was like, go think about it, and it just didn't happen. So I took the game home. If the games were in that, like, when I would work, if I would work on, like, a Friday night or a Saturday night, if we closed the store and the game was in, I would take it home with me and play it. My boss was always okay with us taking the things home if they didn't get rented that night, as long as we brought it back the next morning. And I brought this home, and I'm like, the gameplay isn't all that great, but it's still Lethal Weapon, and the music in this game is awesome. Like I always say, the Ocean games have got the awesome scores, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get this back in my collection. The music in it is fantastic. The game itself is not all that great, but it's a side-scrolling run-and-gun where you're playing as either Riggs or Murtaugh. They don't really have much difference between the two of them. They both do the exact same stuff. And for some reason, they're like super deformed, like they've been like crushed down, like one of the dwarves in a Phantasm movie. It's weird. But it's okay. It's not terrible. It does have some of those problems I have with the regular Ocean games where everyone slips and slides all over the place. But yeah. Next up, we have another licensed game. That's Lion King. You have to have this in your collection at some point for whatever console. It's out on every freaking console out there that was available at the time that this came out. This was always my preferred version, and the graphics are great. The music sounds the closest to what's in the movie when you compare all the different versions. The only problem is this game is hard as balls. It's short as hell, but it's just hard. I have never beat this game in my life. Doesn't mean it's for a lack of trying. I used to try all the time, but I would always get my ass handed to me, especially that stage where you have to get tossed around by the monkeys. Just remembering what the patterns were for where they were going to toss you, it drove me crazy. And after a while, I'd just be like, I'm out. I'm done. Stop. The madness. But it's still a fun game, even though it's, hard as balls. And here's another one I just bought on a whim back in the day because I got it discounted, and that is The Lost Vikings. I absolutely loved this one. It is a platform puzzler where you play as 3 different Vikings. Each of them does specific things. So you got the fat one here who has a shield, and he can either use it to block attacks or he can hold the shield over his head, and you can use it as a platform. And he can also like fall off of ledges, and if he's holding it in the upward position, he can glide. It's like a little hand glider thing. You got the dude in the middle, and that's the only guy who really attacks. He has a sword, and he has a bow and arrow, and the arrows can be used to like hit switches like on the far sides of stages and all that. And then you have the red-headed guy who runs really fast, can jump, and he can put his head down, and his helmet will like break walls open and stuff like that if you're actually doing the run feature. And the 3 of you get kidnapped by aliens, and you're trying to get back to Earth. And the music, for some reason, they thought that a game about Vikings and all that needed like a rave score. Like we're talking like glow sticks and ecstasy rave. That's what the music in this game is like. And as much as I feel it doesn't fit, and it doesn't mean it's not super catchy, I absolutely love the music in this game. It is fantastic. Like the first time I heard it, like my eyes went like, what is this? But I love it. I had to get it back in my collection. I used to play this all the time back in the day. Another one that I never beat because it is very long. There is a ton of levels in this. And it was so well received that it got a sequel. So there's a franchise that should make a comeback. That would be great. Next up, we have Magic Sword. It's a port of an arcade cabinet from Capcom. And it's like a Dungeons and Dragons-esque. I have beaten the arcade version of this on the Capcom Beat 'em Up collection on this PlayStation 4. But yeah, you're playing as like, there's a bunch of characters you can pick. There's like a warrior, like a barbarian-y guy. There's a Valkyrie type. It's kind of like Gauntlet, but it's side-scrolling, and it's all about the loot. But it's really fun. The Super Nintendo version has been obviously dumbed down for reasons, but it doesn't mean it's not good. I actually like this quite a bit. But the arcade version I have for the PlayStation 4 is the one that's going to get played the most. Yeah, I do. All right, that I've completed. I could do that on my app that I have all of my games on, or my games cataloged on my phone. I could put down like when I beat them, but I don't actually do that. Usually I just do like a beat tweet or something like that online to say that I beat something. Next up is the Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse. There was a point in time, like 2 years ago maybe, or 3 years ago, when I was trying to get all of these Magical Quest, Mystical Quest games, like all the Mickey Mousey games on all the consoles. I got like the ones for the Master System, the Genesis, the Game Boy Advance, even one on the Wii. Was it the Wii? Yeah, the Wii. No, the GameCube. And all that. So I don't know why. It was just like, my new collecting goal is this. And then just as quickly it went, phew. But it's a side-scrolling platformer where you're playing as Mickey Mouse. The Capcom games the games that Capcom made based on Disney licenses, usually around this time, were pretty fantastic. And this one is actually pretty cool. Not as good as Castle of Illusion on the Genesis, or even the Master System for that matter. But in its own right, it's still pretty cool. The graphics in this one are actually pretty fantastic. I just sold my copy of this on my 4K. I bought a copy of this movie on 4K, and I watched it. I hadn't seen it since it came out on video. I was like, oh, that's terrible. Why is this in my collection? But I still have the video game of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I saw the movie only once at the video store that I was working at. We put it on late one night because it was an R-rated movie. And I remember like half watching it going like, yeah, this is kind of cool. It's kind of gory and nasty. And then I watched it, like actually sat down and watched it when I got my 4K disc. And I was like, this is one of the worst things I've ever seen. But the game is weird. It's a side scroller, but I haven't put a whole lot of time into it yet. At the same time I got this, I got Dracula, or Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I need to spend more time playing that. But I can't imagine this being better than Bram Stoker's Dracula. But like I said, I need to put more time into it. I can't even remember if I was playing as the monster or as Dr. Frankenstein. 6 huge levels of action from the... Oh my god, I can't even read this font. From the streets of Ingolstadt, the freezing ice fields of the Arctic. Yeah, unique storyteller feature brings Mary Shelley's classics to life. Yeah, whatever. I can't remember. I've only played it once to make sure it worked, and that was it. But this one I have played at great length, and that is Maximum Carnage. I was working at that video store when this came out, and I actually got the banner. There was like a vinyl banner that we got in the store, and I got to take it home. Sadly, I threw it away because it kind of got ripped a little bit. I used to have it hanging on my wall when I was still living with my parents. But when I was taking it down, I kind of tore it a little bit, so I ended up throwing it out. I wish I didn't. Luckily, I still have my Mortal Kombat 2 one, which is awesome. But this is a beat-em-up that features like a ton of characters from the Marvel Universe. Obviously, you can either play as Spider-Man or Venom, but you also have all these other characters that pop up at some point to either help you out or hinder you. You got Black Cat, you got Morbius. It's Morbin time! What was that? Deathlock? Who else is in there? I see Iron Fist. I see Cloak and Dagger. I see Doppelganger. Captain America. Yep. It's a pretty awesome beat 'em up. It could have been better sometimes to get ganged up on, but that's kind of what always happens in like these types of games. But the other cool thing is the music was done by Green Jelly, who previously were known as Green Jello, but got sued by the Jello Corporation or whoever owns the Jello Corporation. But the music is pretty cool. It's like this punk rock type stuff, and it's pretty awesome. I need to sit down and actually play through it. I've never actually beaten that one also. Ooh, this one's going. This stream is going pretty fast, guys. It might not even last for an hour and a half. So in almost 45 minutes, I've gotten through 2 stacks of games, and I got 2 stacks left. So we might be going for an hour 30 today. Next up, we have Mech Warrior. I've always been a fan of the licensed Mech Warrior because I like big mechs. I used to watch Robotech all the time when I was a kid, so it kind of appeals to me. Playing the actual like tabletop RPG, not so much. But this is an action game where you're in the cockpit of a mech and you're taking out other mechs and whatnot. And there are various versions of this game. I think there's another one called like Mech Warrior 2050 or 2150 or something like that for the Super Nintendo. Think? Or am I thinking of the Genesis? I might be confused. But whatever. I remember playing this one back in the day and I absolutely loved it. So I had to get it now. Oh, and then we got this. This is, yeah. I like Big Mech and I cannot lie. Okay, so that T-Scran Vigat raffle Facebook page. The first thing I ever bid on, I won. I paid $15 for 3 games. 3 big games that I got at the same time. They're all one lot, and I bid on them. I bought 3 tickets at $5 each, and I won. Didn't expect to, but it happened. That is Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, and Mega Man X3. Complete in the box. Completely complete. And it turned out that the guy that I won these from lives north of me in Illinois. He lives in, I think, Zion. He still does. Every once in a while, I friended him on Facebook, and every once in a while he sends me a message. You still got my Mega Man games? Like, you haven't sold them off yet? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I never in a million years thought that I would have been able to get these in my collection. And I got these like at the beginning of when I got back into collecting. No joke. And I was like, I already got like 3 of these huge hitters like off the bat. So at the time I got this, Mega Man X going complete in the box was probably like $200. 2 was probably about $500, and 3 was going for just under $1,000, maybe a little over $1,000. Now it's obviously going to be way much more, but whatevs. I've only played Mega Man X1. I played this back in the day. I actually like ran out and bought a copy of this on day 1 because I was a fan of the Mega Man games, even though I gave up after part 4. But I think enough time had passed from when I played 4 to when this came out where I was like, yeah, I could go for a new Mega Man game. And then it turned out to not be like a regular Mega Man game. It was like it's a new thing. So it kind of like took me back and I was like, yeah, I don't think I actually like this. So I got rid of it. But, you know, tastes have changed. I eventually bought the Mega Man X collection on the GameCube, I think it was. And was it on the GameCube? Yeah, I think it was. And or maybe the PlayStation 2 or something like that. But I played like this in a collection somewhere, and I was like, it's actually not that bad. It's actually kind of cool. So when I got back into collecting again in 2013 was when I was like, yeah, I would really like to get those in my collection. It's probably never going to happen, but, you know, I can dream, can't I? And then, like, this happened. So there's that. Mega Man X is the one I have played the most. Part 2, I tried all of these when they first came out just to try them to see if they worked, and they did. This one is kind of more of the same. And then you got part 3, which is more of the same. And then they stopped there on the Super Nintendo, but the X series kept on going on the PlayStation and then the PS2. Next up, licensed game. Talked about this in my 31 Days of Licensed Games video series I did in January. This was best licensed game about a celebrity. And that is Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City. So last week I talked about that NBA game that I have. What is it? The Bulls versus the Blazers, and how since I'm from Chicago, everyone was in that like basketball mood when the Bulls were always in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of the same with this, although I did not care. I was still kind of like Bulls, Bulls, Bulls. But like when I saw this, I was like, yeah, I played Shaq Fu. I don't need that in my life. So I never rented it. I never played it. I never owned a copy of it. I was just like, pfft. But then I get back into collecting in 2013, and I start seeing videos where people are talking about it. You love the Mega Man X series? Yeah, it's better than I remember it being. Get back into collecting, and I think it was Adam Koralik, who's another Chicago game YouTuber, and he was talking about like how, yeah, it's a stupid concept, but it actually works. It's actually a pretty fun video game. So I downloaded a ROM and I played it a little bit, and I was like, you know what? This is actually kind of fun. So I actually went and actively looked for a copy, and I bought one. Obviously, I'm holding it in my hand. And it is a side-scrolling platformer slash, I don't know if I would call it a run and gun, but you definitely are throwing basketballs that have different powers at things, so I would consider it a run and gun, except you don't have a gun. So yeah, you get power-ups by going through these levels, and you find basketball hoops that you need to dunk on. And when you dunk on them, you'll get like a fire basketball, or you get an ice basketball, or a lightning basketball, or something like that. And then you toss the basketballs at the villains to kill them. And it's really stupid, and it's silly, and it's just like, okay, sure, fine. But it's actually extremely fun. I was playing, when I got this in the mail, I was like, okay, let's sit down and actually put some time into it. And I did, and I got maybe halfway through it, and I was like, this is actually kind of awesome. So I'm glad that I have it. I would call it like a guilty pleasure. It's not like a great game by any means, but it is very fun. So I like that one a lot. X4 is my favorite. I don't know if I have X4. I have one for the PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 2. I have one of them for the PlayStation 2. I don't think I have any on the PS1. Another licensed game. Picked this up off of somebody that was on Facebook, like on his regular old, personal page. He was like selling games, and I just happened to like find him in a group or something like that. And that is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. When the Power Rangers came out, I was way too old to give a shit. I was like, yeah, whatever. That's like some little kid's show. I used to watch Ultraman when I was a kid. This is like the new version of Ultraman. I'm good. I don't need that in my life. But I always end up finding all these video games and picking them up as an adult. So whatever. Even though I've never actually sat down and like watched a full episode of this show. I've seen the movie, the old movie, the one that came out like in the 90s. But I've never actually sat down and watched a full episode of the series. I've just seen like clips and whatever. But yeah, it's not my thing. But it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, and it is a very easy beat-em-up. I never played this back in the day. Never had any interest to play it back in the day. But when this showed up in the mail, I basically beat it on my first try. So very easy, especially if I can beat it in one sitting. But it's not bad. You get to play as all the different Power Ranger characters, and then you end up having like the big Megazord boss battles. It's cool. It's fine. But those games are geared for kids, so obviously it's going to be, easy. Oh, and then we've got my boys over here. Yeah. Got that Mortal Kombat. I might like it. So when the original Mortal Kombat came out on the home consoles, obviously Nintendo had an issue with the violent content. So what did they do? They censored the Super Nintendo version. So instead of blood, you got sweat. Instead of fatalities that like you were ripping someone's heart out or whatever, it's usually something stupid that they did instead. Like Johnny Cage's fatality was, I'm going to give you an uppercut and your head is going to fly off. Well, what is the version of the fatality he does in this is he does his little shadow kick and like he sticks his foot inside you. Sure. Kano would rip your heart out and like hold it over his head like a trophy. Now he just kind of like finger bangs your chest and then just kind of like holds his hand up like, I did that. It's terrible. I bought this one instead of the Genesis one back in the day because Super Nintendo fanboy, I had to have it. And I was playing it going like, oh, God, no. But when it comes to like the graphics and the sound and the music and the voice samples and all that, this one is where it's at. This one looks the closest, sounds the closest, and feels the closest to the arcade. Except when it comes to the violent stuff. I wish they did what they did with the Genesis version with this, where there was some sort of a code that you could use to unlock the arcade version, and that would have been great. As it is, this is probably my least favorite version of this game. I'd rather play like the Game Gear version than this. But had to have it. Hell yeah, Mortal Kombat! But eventually I got the Genesis version, and I learned about the Abacadabra code thing, and ended up playing that in spite of it not sounding like the arcade at all, not really looking like the arcade at all. But that was that. Oh, and then we got my special boy right here. Oh, someone's calling me. Yeah, Mom, I'll call you back. So, you're going to see some things on this box. I've talked about this plenty of times before, but yeah, we got Mortal Kombat 2. This is the original box from the copy that I bought back in the 90s. My original one, like the day it came out. So, Nintendo realized that the backlash that they got about the violent content being removed from the original game, they were like, why don't we do this rating system-y thing and just kind of, I don't know, let it slide this time, because obviously the version on the Super Nintendo of Mortal Kombat 2 is going to look and sound better than the Genesis version. We need to get a one-up on them, so yeah, let's just let them leave that stuff in, and we'll just slap a rating on it, because it has like some weird unofficial rating thing on here, which is weird. You can see it. It's just like that little 7 for kids on no younger than 17. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I played the crap out of that version, but you know, I was always angry at it for not having the real fatalities and the blood. But Mortal Kombat 2 is my favorite fighting game of all time. One of my favorite video games of all time. I like sacrificed my education to play Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcade, because when that came out in the arcade, I was going to college and I kept ditching classes to go and hang out with my friends to go to arcades and play it. But I'm such a big fan that I've been going out and trying to get the autographs of all the people that were involved in this game. So back in the day, back when the game came out in 94, there was a game store near me. It was a mom and pop one called, what was it? I just had it too. I keep on wanting to say Game Paradise, but that wasn't it. Oh shit. Now it's completely gone from my screen. Software Junction. Almost lost it. Software Junction. There was maybe a town over from my place, and apparently they knew people in Midway. So when the game came out for the home consoles, they managed to net Johnny Cage, Daniel Pesina, and Philip Ahn, who played Shang Tsung, to come and do autographs. If you had the game on hand already, if you had bought it somewhere else, they would give you an autograph. They were going to give you a poster at the door. You can get autographs, and it was completely free. The only thing I think you had to buy was the posters if you wanted to. So I was like, I already had the game. My friend had bought the posters. He didn't want both of them. He gave me one. So I got my poster signed, and I got this signed by Daniel Pesina and Philip Ahn. Philip Ahn was really nice. Daniel Pesina was not very nice when I met him. He called me a name that I will not repeat because I answered. He asked me who my favorite character was, and I said the two of you, because I basically played as Johnny Cage and Shang Tsung exclusively. And instead of saying the characters' names, I said their names, their real names. And he was like, "That's the worst answer I've ever heard." And then he called me some name under his breath, which like I said, I won't repeat. And I was mad at that guy for a long time. I was like, I did nothing to deserve that. I was an awkward kid. I didn't say anything weird. I just didn't hear. I didn't give him the answer he wanted. So I was like, why would you treat somebody that you've never met like that before, especially someone who's come here to meet you? Like, you want to come off as a douche? Apparently, he didn't care. Turns out, like, I met him years later, and he said he was having a bad day that day. He just didn't want to be there. And, like, I guess he was being snippy with everybody. But when I met him nowadays, he is, like, super nice. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. So I got their autographs originally, and I never got any more until, when was it? Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018. So Daniel Pesina, Philip Ahn, who I guess teach at the same martial arts school, went to the Midwest Gaming Classic to do autographs and stuff like that and meet fans. And they brought along the guy who plays Jax, and I cannot remember his name at the time. His name is on here, and I could just look, Shit. That's his autograph right there. I cannot remember what his name is, but whatever. The guy who played Jax was there. Parrish. Something Parrish. Steve Parrish, maybe? Who was super nice. And getting the autograph for Parrish, I was waiting. I stood by and I played the arcade. They were doing the autographs in one of the arcades at the Midwest Gaming Classic. And I was playing Death Smiles in the corner and listening to how Daniel Pesina was talking to people before I went over there, because I didn't want to like get another earful of, some shitty name, getting called another shitty name by the guy or whatever. So I was standing there and I was just listening to the way he was interacting with people. And he was being super nice. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just go over there and see what happens. So when I talked to Parrish, and he was super nice. He was the really excitable one. But the thing is, when he saw that I already had this signed by Pacina and Philip on, he was like, hey, did you come here yesterday and get their autographs? I'm like, no, I got these autographs back in like 94 when they were at Software Junction. And like Pacino like perked up and he went, Software Junction? I was like, yeah, I actually met the two of you at Software Junction, back in the 90s. And you guys autographed my box. And he was like, holy crap, you're like an old school fan. You're like as old as we are. And like he's like, we're taking a picture together. Like it just jazzed Daniel Pacina up to no end that, I've been carrying this around since 1994. And I'm still getting it signed. So the thing was this time, Philip Bond was the one that was kind of being a butt. He looked like he didn't want to be there. So like Pacina had to like slap him across the shoulder. And he's like, come on, get up, picture time. So I have a picture of the three of us together. And it was a really cool moment. Like Daniel Pacina like redeemed himself to me that day. I was like, okay, you're kind of cool. And I've met him over and over again over the years because of all the autographs I've been getting. So I ended up meeting, what's her name? Caitlin? Yeah, Caitlin something. I can't remember what her last name is, but she played Jade, Melina, and Katana in MK2. I met her at C2E2. I also met dude who played Baraka, Richard DeVizio. I met him. He was super awesome. That guy is like outgoing like you would not believe. I met him at C2E2, and he almost like bear hugged me. It was weird. I got his autograph, and then I met Carlos Pacina at the Midwest Gaming Classic this past year. He was pretty cool. Then I also got an autograph from Kung Lao, Anthony Marquez, at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2019. That guy, like, he's like naturally on drugs. He's like, he's just nuts. But he's awesome. He's super funny. And then I also met Paul Niemeyer, who designed the Dragon logo at Midwest Gaming Classic this past year, and got his autograph. And that guy just wanted to stand around and talk about everything. He was super nice also. I hope I can meet him again at some point because he was nice. So I've got almost everybody to sign this. Only autograph I still need is the dude who played, I think his name's Brian something. The guy who played Shao Kahn. I need his autograph. And I need Ho Sung Pak, who played Liu Kang. And Ho Sung Pak apparently has been doing the rounds with them now too. So hopefully I'll get to meet him in 2023 at some point, which would be awesome. And I'm also hoping for Boone and Tobias also, if I can get around to it. If I can find turns out I live down the street from NetherRealm Studios, so I can just go over there and be like, hey, dudes. I doubt it. That's not going to happen. They probably won't even let me in the door. But my favorite fighting game of all time. Awesome characters. The control is awesome. The way you can like make your own combos is great. The fatalities, everyone has multiple fatalities, new types of fatalities with the friendships and the babalities and all that. And the cool thing about this is I watched it getting developed. I used to go to an arcade called Diversions in Chicago where they were testing Mortal Kombat 2 before it officially came out. And I got to see the game over the course of a month, like morph and change. Like Baraka wasn't Baraka at first. Baraka was a space cowboy. And then like it just feels like it didn't fit into the game anymore. So they created Baraka real quick. They went out and bought like a Halloween mask and put Lee press-on nails along the mouth of the mask to create Baraka. And then just taped up DeVizio's arms with like medical gauze and put these like foam knives that they covered in aluminum foil under his arms to look like knives. It's nuts to see how the game worked. And then there was like the glitch I talked about before. One time I went there to watch to play the game, and there was like a glitch where if you're playing as Baraka and you beat your opponent and you did the babality, for some reason, instead of like doing the little like pose, like I beat him, the thing, like the game, the round is over, you could still walk around. So everyone that was playing as Baraka, when they would do the babality, they would walk up to the baby and then do the scissors move, and you would cut the baby would disappear. You would see all the blood flying, and the baby would disappear, and everyone would be like, "Oh my god!" They may think it's cool. So it was really cool to see. Like I went there one night, that was in the game. People learned about it. Next time I went, it was completely removed, and Baraka would do his little, round over pose, which was really funny to me. But I think it's just a really cool memory that I saw that happen. I saw the game changing over the course of a month to what we know it as. And then once it came out, basically I was like, I don't need my history class. Mortal Kombat's where it's at, bro. It's the future. And then we have Mortal Kombat 3. And as much as I love Mortal Kombat 2, I do not really like Mortal Kombat 3. And I will tell you why. I do not like the run function, and I do not like the preset combo system. It just drove. And another thing, I don't like the characters. I really don't. And the fatalities in this game are terrible. Like, for some reason, instead of going for, like, gore, like, funny, like, over-the-top gore to make you kind of giggle, like, Jack's ripping somebody's arms off, and then they stand there, and they got, like, these two little geysers of blood shooting out of their stumps. Makes me laugh, because it's like this cheesy horror movie kind of thing. And here you got stupid crap like Liu Kang turning into an arcade cabinet and crushing somebody, or Jax growing into, like, a giant and then, like, stepping on somebody and crap like that. It's just stupid. Most of the fatalities in this are terrible. You'll get to meet him. I hope. I used to be on another YouTube channel with my buddy Josh called Toasty. It was like a talk show that me and my buddy did where we talked about games and movies and comic books and, like, just geek stuff in general. And when I found out that NetherRealm Studios was right down the street, I sent them an email. I was like, hey, we're doing this YouTube thing where we're trying to interview people involved with things that we like. We would love if we could interview somebody at NetherRealm. And they just never contacted me back. I like Cabal. When I was playing this in the arcade, Cabal was the only character I would ever play as, because it was the only character I was ever any good at. Nowadays, I play more as Sub-Zero, like the one with no mask. But, like, Cabal was the only person I could do anything with back in the day. But he does have one of the worst fatalities where he, like, screams at you, or he takes his mask off and goes like, boo, and then you see your character's ghost pop out and run away. Like, you scare somebody to death. I was like, no. There's no future in history class. But yeah, I remember the first day I played this in the arcade, I saw the run button on the panel, and I was like, the hell is this? And then I tried it out, and I was like, I do not like this at all. I kept on playing it because it's Mortal Kombat, and I wanted to see everything the game had going on in it. Did not like the animalities. Like I said, I hated the fatalities and all that kind of stuff. They left the babalities in there. And for some reason, it just did not do anything for me. Like, I was like, yeah, well, I guess Mortal Kombat's dead. No, it kept on going. So, my least favorite of the original trilogy. I would say my least favorite game in the series, like the numbered series, is probably 4. I liked all the ones on the PlayStation, and the newer ones are great. But, like, the worst Mortal Kombat game in general, anything, like, when it comes to games that have Mortal Kombat in the title, definitely Special Forces. Poop. Awesome license game. It's a license game, NBA Jam. When I couldn't get on a Mortal Kombat cabinet or even like the WWF WrestleMania or Killer Instinct, I would always go over and play NBA Jam. I'm not a sports game fan. I've brought this up many times. But for some reason, because of how fast-paced this was and like how over-the-top like the dunks were and the announcer guy just like completely hamming it up with like, he's on fire kind of crap, this game just did it for me. It was like a real quick fix, casual style game that was just really easy to just play. Didn't really need to know like anything like from Mortal Kombat, like combos and shit. It was like 2 buttons. It was like run. What was it? Run, like push, like to try to steal the ball, and then like dunk or shoot the ball. It was very easy and very simple, and I loved it. And when it came out on the home consoles, my friend Gary bought a copy of this, and I bought a copy of this, and we would go to each other's houses, and we would play this against each other. We would just be smack talking like you would never believe. Holy crap. The shit that would come out of our mouths. Man, if our parents heard us, I would have gotten the soap poisoning from Christmas Story multiple times. But it's a super fun game that I think the versions that came out after this they kept on getting better and better and better. Super fun game. Mugen, yeah, I have a Mac, so I really can't play that kind of stuff, Denver, but I have watched plenty of videos about the Mugen Mortal Kombats, and there's like I saw one where there's like 300 characters in it or something like that. I was like, how does this even work? I watched somebody play as Michael Myers in it and stuff like that. It is nuts. But I've watched plenty of videos about that on YouTube, which is great. Rage 2. Yeah, Tim Kitzrow, he's been at the Midwest Gaming Classic a lot lately. And I should probably, just because I like the game so much, I probably won't bring this. I might bring my Saturn version of the tournament edition and get him to sign it just because. So, but yeah, he's been there every year, I think, for the past like 3, conventions. I think ever since 2019 he's been there, which is awesome. I'll probably get it signed by him at some point. Another licensed game, and you probably won't remember this movie, but I used to watch this all the time. I thought it was pretty awesome. That's No Escape. You see, that's Ray Liotta on the cover with Winston from the Ghostbusters and Matt Dillon's other brother. The movie itself is what is it? Ray Liotta was in the military and he shot his commanding officer and gets sent to like this prison. And the prison is kind of set up like Escape from New York. There's like this island out in the middle of the ocean, and they just dump prisoners that we don't want in the system here and let them fend for themselves. And there's like a camp of like peaceful people who just want to be left alone, and then there's the ultra violent people who just keep on trying to kill the peaceful people. And Liotta gets taken in by the peaceful people, and he ends up trying to protect them from the violent ones. It's actually a pretty good movie. The guy who directed GoldenEye directed that before. This is the movie that got that guy the job directing GoldenEye. But anyway, the game. It's by Psygnosis, which is why I wanted to own it. I was trying to get all those Psygnosis games back in the day. Not back in the day, like 3 or 4 years ago. And it's a side-scrolling platformer with some puzzle elements to it. It's kind of like playing... I'm trying to think. Not like Black... what is it? Blackthorn? Not Blackthorn. What is it? Oh, geez, I can't even think right now. It's like a platformer, but there's puzzle elements to it. It's, I guess, like Flashback, I guess, is the way to describe it. It's actually pretty cool. This is available on the Genesis also, but I decided to pick the Super Nintendo version because, Super Nintendo horror. Picked this up at that Atari Age table at the Midwest Gaming Classic in 2018 because it was there and it was dirt cheap compared to what I was seeing it for online. So, yeah, I had to get it because, number one, I like the movie a lot. And number 2, Psygnosis. So there's that. I haven't put a whole lot of time into it. So he did your voicemail. Holy shit. Yeah, R.I.P. Ray Liotta. Pour a little bit out for him. I'll take a drink to Ray Liotta. Best Ray Liotta performance in history. Dungeon Siege. My friends and I went and saw that in the theater. And we laughed so hard every time he was on screen. For some reason, he thought it was a good idea to like open his eyes as wide as he could whenever he spoke. So every time he'd be on screen, one of my friends would whisper, "Crazy eyes." It was great. That movie is terrible, though. Next up, we have Operation Logic Bomb. This is a Legend of Zelda style, 3/4 view adventure game. The ultimate search and destroy. I've only played this for about 5 minutes, so I cannot comment on the game. But I remember always reading about this in the magazines. Friends of mine had it and always told me that it was actually pretty cool. It's kind of like what they would consider a hidden gem. Ugh, I hate that term. Diamond in the rough for me. But nobody was ever talking about it. And then I know that Church, the game grinder, always has this sitting on his shelf behind him in his videos. And then I think Nintendo talked about it at one point. And then I went to my local exchange over here, and they had it in their expensive games cabinet, and I was selling them a ton of stuff that day. I was trading in a bunch of stuff I didn't want anymore, and I got a stack of money, and I had to find a way to spend it there because it was all in credit. So I was like, give me that. And I brought it home and tried it out and played it real quick, and it worked, so I was fine with it, but I haven't put any real time into it. But it looks like a Metal Gear game to me, like the original Metal Gear for the NES. Just amped up for the Super Nintendo. So, yes, I need to play it. I need to put time into it. Yay, come on. And then, hey, Mondane, are you still here? Because this is the game we were talking about last week, bro. Let me know if you're still here. Do it. Do it now. Come on. Yeah. Phalanx. So, when this game came out, I was working at that video store, and we got a copy of this in, and I looked at the cover, and I was like, no way in hell I'm playing that. And I never rented it. I never brought it home to play. I didn't care. I was like, this is the dumbest box art I've ever seen for a video game. There's no way it's going to be good, or I'm not going to waste my time on it kind of thing. I have banjos. Turns out it's actually a very cool horizontally scrolling shmup. And way better than it has any right to be with that cover. But nowadays, I look at that cover and I just laugh. It is so dumb that it's awesome. Like, guilty pleasure for some reason. And whatever reason, they made the ship at the top look like the Gunstar from Last Starfighter. But whatever. Death Blossom! But yeah, I wish I actually, like, ignored the cover art and just tried it out back in the day, because I probably would have liked it, because it's a very cool shmup. Just very unfortunate box art, but like I said, nowadays I look at it and I just cackle. I can't help it. It's so stupid. It's awesome. Then we have a classic. I do believe this was a launch game for the Super Nintendo, and that is Pilot Wings. This was one of the first games I bought for my Super Nintendo when I got it out of layaway finally when I was working at that Kmart. Like I've said, I got a job working at that Kmart just so I could buy a Super Nintendo because my parents weren't going to buy me one. And every game I bought, every week I would buy a new game whenever I get paid. We got paid weekly, and I would pretty much blow my entire paycheck on a game each week. And this was the first game I bought. I think it was, you get the console, and I think I bought this the same time because I only had like $20 left to pay on the Super Nintendo, and then I had enough to get another game. So I picked this. The following week I got SimCity, and then I got Gradius 3, and then Super R-Type. Yeah. Which Mortal Kombat ports are you missing? Nothing, I think. I'm missing... I'm definitely missing 2 and 3 on the Master System. I have 1 and 2 on the Game Gear. I don't know if 3... I think 3 came out on the Game Gear. I don't have that. I only have Mortal Kombat 2 on the Game Boy. So I need 1 and 3. But outside of that, I think I have everything else. I have like the ones for the DS and all that. I don't have Mortal Kombat Advance on the Game Boy Advance. But I have Ultimate Mortal Kombat on the Saturn. Oh, I don't have Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the Saturn. That's the other one. That one's expensive as hell. So there's a few. I do have Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the Gamecom, though. Take that for what it's worth. But, yeah, this was like 3 different mini games. There was parachuting, hang gliding, and flying a biplane. And this was basically a tech demo for what Mode 7 was. 32X I don't collect for. But yeah, I don't have Mortal Kombat 2 for the 32X. I don't have a Gamecom either, but I have the game. So I should probably get it. Because, yeah, one of my goals was to get all the Mortal Kombats. So eventually I'll do it. And I really enjoyed it. It was kind of cool because of all the new effects that this console could do. It was giving you new game experiences. We didn't get stuff like this on the Genesis or on the Nintendo or the Game Boy. So I played this quite a bit. I was trying to like perfect my technique for everything. So I played this a lot back in the day. And nowadays it's a little... But the memories are there, and I will always enjoy the memories. It's actually a very fun game, even though, like I said, it is just a tech demo. Get in there. Oh, we're coming close to the end, guys. Next up, last week I talked about the Famicom, the Super Famicom games I had in this series. I'm pretty sure that this is the same as one of the ones I have on the Super Famicom, and that is Ranma 1/2 Hard Battle. I want to say, yeah, I think this is one. I think this is a duplicate, essentially. This is the localized version of one of those Super Famicom games. So, Ranma 1/2 is a fighting game where you're playing as all the different characters from the anime, and there are some of them that actually have their animal form, but like obviously you're not going to play as a duck, you're not going to play as a cat, you're not going to play as a pig. So you only play as the characters who turn into something large, like Ranma's dad, who turns into a giant panda. So there's that. Yeah, like he's on the cover there, just kind of creeping in the background while Ranma's kicking the crap out of Ryoga. So, yeah, since I liked the anime, I absolutely had to get this back in the day. Actually, the funny thing about this game, when I picked this up back in the 90s, this is when I was in college. So I was taking a lit course, and turns out we were going to have to read The Great Gatsby. I hate that book. I hate it so much. I hate it with every fiber of my being. I think it is the worst book I've ever read. And when I saw it, like I signed up for the class. I went to the first class. We went over the reading list. What's up, Blink? PS2 era is so great. PS2 was one of my favorite consoles. So I'm with you there. Yeah, so we went to, like I said, I went to the first class. We went over the reading list for the semester, and I was like, oh, we got to read that? Fuck this class. I actually went to the admissions office, told them I need to cancel it, and they basically, instead of like charging the money back to my parents, they basically just gave me cash, like on the spot for canceling. I think you had like a window of like a week when classes started to like cancel your classes if you needed to. And they basically just gave me cash on the spot for, this is a community college, by the way. This isn't like Harvard. They like basically just handed me over a stack of cash of what it cost to take that class. And my parents didn't realize that that was what was going to happen. So basically I was like, oh, I have a handful of money now, and I don't have a class to go to today. I'm going to go buy a Super Nintendo game, and I bought this with that money. So, yeah, there's that. I was a dickhead back then. I was an ass. My parents never knew about it. They never realized that I even canceled that class because they weren't keeping track of that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a decent fighting game. It is a little slow, and the AI ramps up so much at the end of the game. It gets impossible. I've never actually beaten it, but I played it plenty because, like I said, I love the anime that it's based on. Next up, we have Rival Turf, which is a beat-em-up that's like a very much a ripoff of Final Fight. The characters even look very similar. It's okay. It doesn't quite have the polish of Final Fight, but the thing is, as much as nowadays I don't like Final Fight, I actually kind of prefer this to it. So there is that. So got that dirt cheap. Here's another Ocean game. So was it 1 year? It was probably like 2016 or 2017. I got my tax return, and I was like, I'm going to go on and just buy all these games that I've been wanting to buy that I had on my like wish list or watch list on eBay or whatever. And I just kind of went crazy, and I bought shit for every console out there. And one of which was RoboCop 3, because I never actually played this back in the day. I played the NES version of the original RoboCop movie, and that one's pretty fun. I've played part 2 in the past. Back in the day, I rented it. That's where like the whole why do characters in Ocean games slip and slide all over the place like they're on ice started, was with that game, and the Dark Man and all that other stuff. But I was like, on the Super Nintendo, let's see what they did with RoboCop. So I bought a copy of this, and you can see how much I paid. Can you see? $14.99. That's why I was willing to pay for it. I wouldn't have paid more than that. And no, it's not good. It's not good at all. It doesn't have the slipping and sliding thing, but it's just clunky as hell and slow and just badly designed, although the music's kind of cool. Yeah. I should have known it's a movie. It's a video game based on RoboCop 3, which I think is an absolutely terrible movie. So the game itself wasn't going to be very good either. Only time I've played a video game based on a terrible movie where the game is better than the movie. I think I talked about one in here already. Did I? I remember I brought it up earlier. Oh, Judge Dredd. Yeah, the Judge Dredd game is definitely better than the movie. Wolverine, X-Men Origins for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. That game is 10 times better than that movie that it's based on. Anyway, next up we have, now this is an awesome, I need to take it out of the protector for this because I don't think you're going to be able to see what's so awesome about it if it's in the protector. And that is RoboCop versus Terminator. And this is the coolest box I've ever seen for a Super Nintendo game, bar none. I had this back in the day, and it blew my mind when I saw this on the shelf at the electronics boutique at my local mall. It is shaped like the CPU of a Terminator. It is hard plastic. It is awesome. That is the coolest thing ever. Escape from Absalom in Australia. Love that movie. Oh yeah, that was the name of the island, Absalom. Yeah, that's a fantastic movie. I need to watch it again. I think it's coming. I think it's out on Blu-ray now. The only thing that really sucks about having it in this awesome ass packaging is that you have to lift this up. Like I said, it's this hard plastic. In order to get the manual in there, they had to fold it in half. Ain't that some shit? And the back of the box is just like this flimsy cardboard. But this was stupid. I swear. Look, if you lay it flat across the box, you could definitely, or maybe they changed the shape of the manual. You could have definitely fit it inside this box, not have to fold it in half, because that is stupid. That is stupid. Hang on a second. I'm having trouble getting this back together. Okay, so this came out on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and even the NES, I think, in England. It is a side-scrolling run-and-gun where you're playing as RoboCop. The Terminators have come back in time to kill you, if I remember correctly. Like, they're trying to stop you because something... You end up stopping... Like, RoboCop ends up stopping Skynet from doing what it needs to do to take over the future. Because it's like a human mixed with a machine instead of just being pure machine, so he's a threat. It's a fun game. This is the better looking and the better sounding of the two versions. The only thing is the Genesis and the Super Nintendo game are not exact. They're not the exact same game. There's differences. One of which is the Genesis version is like gory as hell. It is bloody. There's none of that in here. Instead of getting blood and gore, we got an awesome box. So I can't really complain. Absolutely love that box. I remember I went to EB Games to look for a copy of this, and like I said, I saw it sitting there, and I was just like, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen. So, hell to the yeah. Next up, we have another licensed game. Can't help it. I love them. Sequest DSV. This is based off of a television show that was developed by Steven Spielberg. And it's like trying to be Star Trek, but underwater. And I never really could get into the show. I always thought it was super cheesy, especially when you have like that Wesley Crusher kid who has like a pet dolphin. No. But the game itself is an exploration style game. You play as the Sequest submarine in these top-down, like 3/4 view sections, and you're looking for places to dock and caves and stuff like that. And then when you go someplace where you need to do something, it turns into a side-scrolling, almost like a shmup, where like you're in like a, what do they call them? Like a submersible vehicle or something like that. And it's like a shooter level and all that. And it's okay. It's not bad. It's not great either. But I mean, I remember I rented this back in the day, and I think I actually had a copy of this that I found in the late 90s, early 2000s, that I played a little bit. But yeah, that's like the submersible thing that I'm talking about. And then you get to play as Darwin the dolphin also a couple times. It's not like playing Echo. That I rented, and I liked it enough to want a copy of it. So it's on the Genesis too, but I think the Super Nintendo one is obviously better. And then we have these. I picked these up at the Midwest Gaming Classic from my buddy Justin, Cardboard Zero. Hung out with him last year when I went to Minnesota to hang out with the Game Grinder. And he was selling parts of his collection at the convention. He got a table along with another guy, and I bought Gyrus from the other guy. I talked about that in the Genesis streams. He was selling a bunch of his collection in order to fund going back to college. And when I hear stuff like that, especially from people I'm friends with or I like, I'm like, I'm definitely down to help. Like you're looking for some money, I'll give you some money. Like I said with that Atari Age table, when they were trying to raise money for that dude who died for his daughter to go to college, I was like, yeah, you're definitely going to get some money from me. I'm definitely down to help. Same with Justin. He was like selling this stuff so they can go back to college. What do you got? So I picked up Secret of Evermore from him, completing the box with like everything. And I had never played this back in the day. I did not realize that it played almost exactly like Secret of Mana, but it's an adventure RPG. I guess we call it more of an action RPG. I played it a little bit when I first got back from the convention. And like you play as this guy who's like hanging out with his dog, and then he gets pulled into like a parallel dimension, and all of a sudden his dog turns into a big werewolfy looking thing and can attack with you. And you're just always fighting monsters and stuff. It is pretty cool. I liked it a lot. I haven't put a whole lot of time into it. I just wanted to make sure that it worked. But I was capturing footage also for a pickup video that I was going to do of everything I picked up at the convention. And that's why I ended up playing this as long as I did. But I need to actually like sit down and play through the whole thing. So there was that. But at the same time, at Justin's table, I also picked up Secret of Mana, which I had never played either back in the day. If it wasn't a Final Fantasy game from Square Enix, I really didn't care. And if it wasn't called Final Fantasy 2, I really didn't care. So, like I said, I never played Final Fantasy 3/6. back in the day. But this is kind of the same thing. It's a top-down, like action RPG. And I know a lot of people don't like this one because of the way the fighting works. It's not like the real-time fighting or whatever you want to call it, the turn-based. You basically have like a meter, and like if you are constantly hitting the attack button, you will not gain any strength for the attacks. You have to actually like wait for like a meter to build up. That's like your strength. Then you hit the button again, and then you'll do like a real powerful attack. So it kind of, I know Captain Algebra like really can't stand this game because of that mechanic, but it didn't bother me when I was playing it, so I didn't really care. So this is also considered a absolute classic. I actually have the remaster or remake of it for the PlayStation 4, even though I never played this back in the day. I had bought that before I bought this. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to play A Secret of Mana, it's going to be this remake or remaster or whatever it was. And then like the next year I got this. Sure, why not? What does that say? Super Nintendo what? Oh, multiplayer. You can play 3 players at the same time with this if you have the adapter. So there's that. You need to sit down and actually play it. And then the last game I'm going to talk about tonight is a reproduction that I got from that retro arcade or Etsy shop or whatever. This game never actually came out officially. It was basically finished, and then it got canceled because the movie that it's based on, of course it's a licensed game. Look who you're talking to. The movie that it's based on like bombed. Same situation with Star Trek V on the Nintendo. Bandai made an entire full game based on Star Trek V, and then Star Trek V bombed hard and got shitty reviews. So they're like, yeah, we'll just cut our losses and not release it because nobody's going to buy a video game of a movie that everybody hates. So they shelved it, and eventually the ROM came out, people put it on cartridges, and now it's out there in the world. Same with this. The movie bombed. Ocean, should have known. Ocean shelved it because they're like, yeah, no one's going to buy a game based on a movie nobody has seen. That's The Shadow. I don't care that the movie bombed. I actually really enjoy the movie. I think it's a lot of fun. You got Ian McKellen in it. You got Alec Baldwin. You got John Lone just chewing up the scenery as Shiwan Khan. I love it. So what do you do with The Shadow, which is like a pre-superhero? He was like a radio show character, and then they made like an old TV serial out of it. And then it was a movie in the 90s that nobody saw. You turned into a beat-em-up. And it's very much like playing Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo, and that's not a bad thing, because Batman Returns, I think, is the best beat-em-up on the Super Nintendo. You have a lot of really cool like special moves / weapons you can use. You have like a shadow slide, which is like a shoulder ram or whatever you do, and you kind of have this really cool effect. You can kind of see it in this picture here. He's got like that wave behind him, and that's when he like does the slide. You see like the streak from following him. I'm starting to stutter. I'm so tired, and my throat is going crazy. But there's also sections where you'll pull out your 2 guns and you'll just start shooting everybody. And I think it just happens like at certain points in the stages. You reach a certain point, and it's like, okay, shooting gallery time. Blah, 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 blah. It's actually a really good game. And the only thing that tells you that this was released slightly unfinished is there's a couple of characters that when they come out, you'll see like they start to glitch. They're like made out of like staticky boxes. But the game still plays normally. You just walk up and you still beat the crap out of them. It's just like these staticky boxes. There's only one character type that's like that, but it has a really cool like cinemas and stuff like that in between the stages. The music is fantastic. It plays really well. It's actually really, really good. For an Ocean game, that blows my mind that I actually really enjoyed it. So I'm surprised it never got released. I would have just said, whatever. We put the effort and time into it. Obviously, it's a very well-made game. I would have just released it anyway, even if the movie bombed. There's plenty of movies out there that got that bomb that had games based on it come out, like Waterworld and stuff like that. So whatevs. And that is it for tonight. 1 more stack or 2 more shelves worth of games to talk about over here. And that is going to be next Thursday night. I will be back tomorrow with another short. Can't tell you what the topic is because I have like 6 of them on my phone that I need to. I'm just releasing them all randomly. I just shot a whole bunch at once. So I can't remember which one I'm going to release tomorrow. But you have to wait and see. I'll probably release it around like noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time tomorrow. So look for that. And then I'll be back next week with part 3 of this series next Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So hope to see you there for that. Yeah, I like The Shadow. I actually have a copy of it on Blu-ray that I watch occasionally. Actually, I put it on at night when I'm bored because because I get a kick out of it. It's like one of those guilty pleasure movies for me. And then, yes, at the end of this month, I will definitely have a pickup stream that covers both October and November. I didn't really have much to talk about in October. This month, things have happened. A trip was made. I took a trip last week, and things have been acquired. Trades were made. I will have things to talk about, definitely. So keep an eye out for that at the end of the month. So that is it for tonight's stream. Thank you very much for hanging out with me and chatting, everybody. This is a pretty big crowd compared to last week. So I am super stoked that everybody showed up, and thank you for that donation, Lore Rider, for the $2. That's awesome. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with me tonight. I'll talk to you next week. Chris, the old ass retro gamer, out. Have a good night, everybody. Stay safe. You talking about this, Mondane?